Hello. Welcome to Yoga for Justice. Our topic this evening is freedom and the sort of paradox that the United States is that I'm thinking about here this 4th of July Independence and Freedom celebration coming up at how much, what kinds of thoughts are we maybe stuck in about freedom, and what can we do to free ourselves from those? How have we maybe bound ourselves to certain thoughts or processes in our own mind without realizing it? So we're exploring physically binds with the understanding that there's a lot of mythology embedded in this celebration of freedom that deserves to be explored, that deserves for us to look at where we're having to make efforts to bind ourselves to a certain belief system in order to, understand freedom in a certain way. So exploring physical binds. I want to take soles of the feet together and let the feet or the knees fall open. And just breathe here, letting the feet be closed up. And you can fold over as far as you want to, but just breathing here. Letting the back open up, letting the hips open up a little bit. And I'm going to open us with a quote from Malcolm X. The most disrespected woman in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And I think that was true then. That's true now. It was true at the very beginning in our country, where we have this really pretty declaration that all men are created equal, explicitly meaning not women of any kind, and also explicitly meaning white male property owners to whatever extent there were, there are of course free Black people in America, but by the time we had a constitution, we had a chattel slavery system embedded in the Constitution itself. So, born in contradiction. It's not for us to never exist in contradiction. It's to know that we're doing it and see what efforts we're making to hold on to that. So as we come down, we're going to come down to the back, close the knees up like a book, and roll down. And taking some heel extensions. So extending one flexed heel out at a time, holding on to the opposite knee. Exhaling in. Inhaling the heel out, reaching that foot out. Exhaling back in. And if the feet are a rooting system, think about the deprivation of freedom in millions of people uprooted from their homes, denied what kind of family they would have, denied any right to decide what kind of work they would have or who they would work for, denied participation or ownership in either the land or the wealth that their labor generated. More heel extension to each side. Pausing, bringing the feet back down, giving a thought to the fact that these enslaved Black bodies built the country physically, and that Black women's bodies built new bodies that were forced into that same, again, chattel slavery system. From here, we're going to flex the right ankle, placed on top of the left knee, and press it open. You can stay on the floor or draw the left leg in. Just keep breathing. And simultaneously, as this abuse and just total deprivation of freedom is happening to African women in this country, and then African American women, their daughters. We had the indigenous peoples of the Americas being abused, exploited, slaughtered. Let that left foot back down, uncross the feet. Deprived of their land. Flexing the left ankle, placed on top of the right knee, easing out away. Maybe bring this right foot back in. And knowing that those people too were deprived of parenting their children, of educating their children. Their children were denied their tribal and home identities. Letting that right foot back down, and crossing the legs. And I'm just saying, if Manifest Destiny was about freedom, I'll kiss your ass. So we're going to cross this right foot over one more time. We're going to come to a twist with a bind option. So making sure your shoulders are anchored down. Actually, I'm going to do it the other way first. So I'm going to take my left ankle in front of my right, on top of my right knee so you can see where I'm going. So I'm going to land this right foot. So roll to my right hip, land my left foot down. And I have the option, if I can kind of scoop the leg in, to hold on to my left foot with my right hand. I also have the option, if I can get there, to take my left hand to my right foot. Breathing here. Holding on to this twist. Maybe thinking about whatever kind of romanticized stories you know about the beginning of this country or about the settling of the West. We're including Little House on the Prairie. If you're holding on to that, you're going to want to release that too. And release both of your hands, come up. Uncrossing the feet, we'll twist the other way. So now I'm going to place my right ankle over my left foot, rolling to my left hip, scoot over, landing my right foot on the floor. Maybe I squeeze it in and hold on to that foot with my left hand. Maybe I can wiggle my left foot around so that I can get a hold of that toe with my right hand. Breathing here. Again, just looking for whatever type of story you hold on to that doesn't quite go with the truth. Where do you have to reach? Where do you have to twist to hang on to a story? And we'll release that coming on back out. I want to roll over to the stomach. We are going to be doing some binds today, so we want to make sure the shoulders are healthy and the chest is open. So come over to your stomach with arms out like an airplane, or like your, I don't know, they feel kind of like wings to me. I'm going to plant this left hand and I'm going to roll up to my left side. And I'm just pushing my right hand into the floor and letting my right foot come to the floor, pushing this shoulder towards my spine, opening my chest, breathing. I'm going to roll back to the belly, take the right hand out, and then roll up to the right side, breathing here. Rolling back down, and we'll come up to a seat. Sitting up tall, giving a couple shoulder rolls, and a couple little neck rolls. And again, just making sure that we stretch the shoulders out pretty well. I'm going to take my right arm just across my chest, and I can either hold on to my right wrist with my left hand and draw it across, keeping it sinking down away from my ears, or I can, really wrap up above the elbow. Breathing. And then changing sides, taking that left arm across, either drawing it across using your right hand or holding up above the elbow and breathing. Releasing down. And so we have a few places where, there are these celebrations of new freedom. This cat might knock the screen down behind me. Hopefully he won't. So with these denials of all kinds of freedom for Black women and brown women, a lot of times you might hear the phrase white feminism said in a derogatory kind of way, and think like, well, why does it have to be confrontational or anything like that? And you might sort of hear, well, I don't know what you've heard, but in any case, like white women being criticized for not being supportive of Black women. And that is a real thing. And it is also very, very historically just been there and still being here kind of a thing, that white women and just white people failing to stand up for Black women who are obviously being abused and exploited and mistreated has just been happening for a long time in a lot of ways. So in her speech that's called Ain't I a Woman, Sojourner Truth said, I have borne 13 children and seeing most all sold off into slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? And so this idea that sort of like motherhood or womanhood unites all women across all barriers just isn't really true, and it's never been true. In particular, white women have attached themselves to power, white malehood, and property ownership over the freedom and dignity of other women's bodies. And this is true. This is true in several different kind of ways. Women's suffrage, which is really celebrated, and which women struggled and suffered to get the vote at all. And it was just for white women. And they made Ida B. Wells be at the back of the parade in a like allegedly separate event, just, wouldn't even participate in the advocacy with a Black woman because she was Black. So votes for women, but not for all women. Then you have sort of the, I guess probably when I say white feminism, maybe the feminism that more people are familiar with, which is the kind of like the feminine mystique idea of the feminism that more people are familiar with, which is the kind of like the feminine mystique idea of the stay-at-home mom who's just so deprived of things to do with her mind that she, all she has to do is uphold this ideal of femininity, and her inability to go sort of self-actualize and use her talents is the thing that is keeping her depressed and down in her home that her husband owns. So this idea that, womanhood is defined and femininity is defined in a way that excludes the mostly Black and brown and certainly less socioeconomically well-off women who clean the houses, raise the kids, and then get criticized for their own motherhood about their own kids because they are being paid to raise somebody else's because they have to work. So this like idea along class lines and income lines. So the idea that sort of women are a monolith or all women think the same way has never quite been true. So I highly recommend a book by a writer called Bell Hooks. And the title of it is Feminism is for Everybody. And it's a real short, fairly dense idea that really succinctly describes the power systems in which women and feminism exist. And she describes it as the white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy. So each piece of what is prioritized over everything, that's the power system that decides where the resources go, the land and the money. So these like ways of defiance. We'll start with some cat-cow stretches, making sure the spine's nice and open. So come into tabletop to hands and knees, exhaling, pulling the belly up and rounding. Inhaling, opening up the chest. Exhaling, drawing up, rounding. Inhaling, opening out. And then maybe examining as you're here making space, consider what beliefs you hold, either about families, about women, about Black people or Black women, or how do you hold beliefs in your mind. White middle class women or upper class women that don't really tell the whole truth about them as family members and about their family life. And what stories have you held or do you hold about wealth, about ownership, about who deserves what, about what freedom for you has ever meant for anybody else? Because every single one of us sitting here today is on land that isn't really ours, or that was acquired by unconscionable means that were wrong. And so whatever relationship we have to the power systems now, there's an extent of freedom that we have because of somebody else's being deprived of their freedom. And it's not about feeling bad about it. It's about knowing it and knowing that our mind can be free of these stories, if nothing else. So from here, we're going to plant the hands, come up to a downward facing dog, lift the hips, heels release down towards the floor, shoulders slide down the back. We'll inhale the right heel high to the sky. Exhale, swing it through between the hands, plant the left knee, and come up for a low crescent lunge. And always with these classes, we're binding the heart open. We've got to hold it open in order to stretch. So that can be opposite elbows behind your back here, just lifting your chest. It can be interlaced hands hugging back. It can be reverse prayer, either praying for redemption for the past that you couldn't control, or praying to unlock the dark side of your heart and the things that you can't see. And breathing. And we'll release that, coming all the way around. Plant the left hand, inhale the right arm up and twist. Just hugging the elbows in to your inhale. Lengthening the tailbone back, lifting the crown of the head. Your inhale. Lengthening the tailbone back, lifting the crown of the head. Exhale. Downward facing dog. And we'll inhale that left heel up high. Exhale through between the hands. Plant the knee. And come up. Low crescent lunge. The chest. Keeping the hips square and breathing. And we'll release the arms all the way around. Plant the right hand. Inhale, left arm up high. And we'll take the left hand back down. Tuck the right toes. Step to plank. Roll through your knees, chin and chest. Into your inhale. Cobra. And exhale. Downward facing dog. And breathing, planting through the hands, relaxing the knees and the heels. We'll inhale the right heel up high. Exhale, swing it through between the hands. We're coming up warrior two. Bending that right knee. Find that alignment, that little T-shape in the feet. Tucking the toes. Extending through the fingertips and gazing out over your right hand. On an exhale, flip that right palm, reach it up, peaceful warrior. Left arm trails, inhaling, extending from the outside edge of that left foot all the way up the side body through the fingertips. We'll inhale back out, right knee stays bent. We're going to come to a bound peaceful warrior. Extending that right arm, bending the right knee. And the left hand can either rest behind the back or if it can find the front of your right thigh, breathe here. We're going to come to a bound triangle. So straightening that right knee. Then you're going to extend the right arm out, keeping the left arm where it is. Reach and lightly drop that right hand down, feeling the tightness through the shoulder, through the neck. And if you want extra stretch through your neck, turn and look down at your foot. Inhale back out. Finding that warrior two, bending the knee. We'll exhale, windmill the hands down. Stepping back for plank. Rolling through a transition, or you can skip it. Exhaling to downward facing dog. Good breath here. We'll inhale the left heel up high. Exhale, swing it through between the hands, coming up. Warrior two, into that left side. Left knee bends. Right foot presses in. Reaching through your hands, tucking down through your tailbone and looking over that left hand. And we'll flip that left palm, reaching back, right arm hangs down. Inhaling back out, taking the left arm down, come into extended side angle. Right. Inhaling back out, come into a bound peaceful warrior. Left hand flips up, right arm sits behind the back or comes all the way to the leg. Breathing here. Standing out, reaching over, lightly resting that left foot, breathing here. Maybe turning your head towards that left foot. Again, feeling how much effort and tension it takes to stay bound. Inhaling, lifting back out. We'll exhale, windmill the hands down. Step back for plank. Roll through. Transition of your choice. Come into a downward facing dog. And you're going to come to a down dog twist here. So take your feet about mat's distance apart. Letting your knees be relaxed, keeping those hips lifting. You're going to put your hand in the middle of the mat or closer to the center, your right hand. Press into that right hand. Take your left hand anywhere to the outside of your right leg and pull through. Releasing that left hand, taking the left hand down closer to center, and then pressing through across with that right hand. Breathing. Releasing that right hand. Coming back to your downward dog. And we'll lower the knees, sink back for child's pose. breathing here. I'm just pausing for a rest. There's just no end of areas where, what gets sold to white people as freedom is something actually sort of precious that has been taken away from somebody else that's like a fundamental piece of freedom. And so color in America, both as doctors and as patients, Black people in America, people of color in America, Indigenous people, or the formalized healthcare systems. So we have this now for white people, a great deal of which, and some really fundamental components of implementation without consent and without knowledge. Some seems Henrietta Lacks of her having no or used in certain ways, and not being appropriately asked whether she wanted to participate. But then you have forced experimentation, whether you're talking about the Tuskegee experiment or birth control, hormonal birth control for women. White women who got to go to college in the 60s and 70s had the sexual revolution. There was freedom that they gained by having, this medicine that could help you to choose not to be pregnant, choose not to become pregnant. And it was revolutionary. But it came at the cost of medical experimentation on Black and brown women, particularly Puerto Rican women, and illegal drug trials, freedom to white women in America. So having access to a great deal, but then to say nothing of the ongoing abuse of women of color, including sterilization without their knowledge or consent, share in land ownership, or wealth gains based on productivity in whatever kind of job they could have worked. And so looking at our for-profit healthcare system and the bodies that built it too, we'll come into our next sequence with some more finds. What do we have access to that we call freedom that costs or is costing someone else their freedom? So we'll come back to downward dog. Toes tuck, hips lift, hands firm, shoulders sliding down the back. Inhale the left heel high to the sky. Exhale, swing it through between the hands. We're coming up from warrior two once more. Sinking into that left knee, pressing into the right foot. We're going to come to a bound extended side angle. I'm just going to trust you to follow it. I'm going to take that hand down. It can come to the leg with the right arm, shoulder back, like you're trying to get your spine sort of parallel or level with your left thigh. And then if you want, you can take your left hand. And we'll release that. Roll that right arm all the way around. Take it to a lizard. And exhaling to downward facing dog. We'll inhale, right heel high to the sky. Exhale, swing it through between the hands, coming up, bending deeply into that right knee, but never past the ankle. Pressing into that left foot, looking over those right fingers. And we'll take this right arm down, left arm can come over the ear. If you have the room, trying to stay really in this kind of side plane, bringing this right hand down to the floor. Maybe this left arm wants to hang behind the back, rolling the chest open. Maybe this right arm can come underneath. Find the hand. Releasing it down, taking that through. You transition and exhale. Downward facing dog. We'll inhale, look between the hands. Exhale, walk the feet up to the top of the mat. Inhale, lift halfway and lengthen. Exhale, fold down. Hanging down. If you want to take opposite elbows, you can. If you want to take your feet further apart, sinking down into the hips, you can. Breathing here. Like your thighs are kind of level to the floor. Release your hands and slide your hands underneath your feet up to the wrists for a little bind. Binding your hands to the floor. Sinking the hips down. Breathing. And then feeling yourself resist this a little bit. So you're going to sink your hips back and pull through your hands, pressing into your feet. And then release and fold. And do that a handful of times, sinking your hips back, resisting this bind. And then we'll slide the hands out. You want to really get your knees bent, tuck your tailbone underneath you, and then slowly roll. Let your head be the last thing to come up. And breathing here. We're going to come down. Let's see what it was on. Lower the hips down. I always have to adjust my feet. And I like to settle my elbows into the insides of my knees here. So feet are flat, tailbone aims down. You're pressing into your hands and lifting through the crown of your head. And then take this left hand over to the floor, pressing it down. Reach your right hand up. Feet stay flat. If you can find the bind, you're going to roll this left arm around your left leg and the right hand comes behind your back. Trying to press into that right foot and open the chest. Extending left arm up high and then maybe taking that right arm back, finding a bind here. You can use a strap. I didn't think to get one to show it. Releasing that, coming back to your malasana. And then just place the hands down, kind of lift your hips out. I like to get a little around there and just sit down to the floor. So we're going to do a couple of reverse tabletops to open up the back even more. Again, thinking about whatever it is. Usually in America, it's something that we buy. That to us we've decided it means freedom, but often costs somebody else theirs, even if it was ancestral. We know enough about epigenetics and multi-generational genetics to know that these things affect us to this day, and to know that they affect everybody materially to this day. We just need to kind of quit lying about that. So we'll take feet flat. Hands can either face your hips or face out to the side, pressing in. You want to press your shoulders away from the ears and towards each other, lifting through your chest, and then pressing your feet, pointing your tailbone out long, lifting up your hips and breathing. Sinking the hips back down. And if you want to find a little Baddha Konasana feet, a little forward bend here. We're going to do some forward bending, but if you want to just find a comfortable seat for just another second, because as I say, before we get into this last little round of seated postures, so much of what we call freedom or think of as freedom is about spending money for the just consumption of goods. We can't just feel, we're denied a lot of things. First of all, none of us are in a very good spot for the most. Really surviving, so that 2 cents a day, barely surviving, so that somebody can go to a department store in the U.S. and afford to buy this, garment that should cost 4 times what it costs if the standard of living was equivalent. So we have this like sort of the global labor, the effort to serve freedom, the nature of what I need to be free, to feel free. And so we're going to come over to your seat, extending your legs out long in front, get your feet flexed. Go ahead and draw your flesh. This is real hard after as much as we've been doing. And let it go. So we're going to take first Maritsyasana, which is the posture of the sage, with the idea that we get justice through wisdom, and that we're looking for wisdom. And maybe now, if we can let go of some of these stories, we can bind ourselves to wisdom instead, hopefully. You're going to take your left foot in real close to you. As deep of a bend as your knee will let you do. Flexing this right foot. You want about a hand width in between your right thigh and your left foot on the floor. Lifting up tall. And so what you're going to do is inhale your arms up high, and on your exhale, extend, reach forward. And if you can kind of notch this leg into your left armpit, you can take this left arm behind you and meet it with the right. Breathe and get a nice length. And then reach the heart and the crown of the head out over that right leg. Breathe in here. Looking out over that right toe. Releasing that back out. Unwinding. Maybe this right arm comes around. There's a deeper twist here, but it's hard. You can't really see, I don't think, on the camera, the space between my right knee and thigh. I'm going to try to thread my right arm through. It's this side. Flexing that left foot. Sitting up tall. We'll inhale, the arms reach high. And then exhale, reach to the inside of that right leg. And you can kind of notch your shoulder around the right leg. Wrap the hand. Maybe the left hand can wrap around as well. And you're holding your hands together, reaching for wisdom, holding to wisdom. Not every story that we know. Releasing. Come on back out. We'll cross this right foot over. Holding that left foot. Holding that right shin. Flexing the left foot. Drawing this right thigh up towards your torso. We're going to wrap left arm around. Take the right hand back. Breathing in this twist. And seeing about you can get this left arm through. Maybe finding with the right hand, maybe you can thread that little needle and bind yourself in this twist. Again, noticing the effort that it takes to bind to anything. Releasing that, unwinding, taking the inside of this right foot to the inside of the left thigh. Let it hang over. Flexing that left ankle. We'll inhale, arms reach. Exhale, reach the heart out long, relaxing, folding over that left leg. Keep the foot flexed, let the knee bend, and keep that left hip drawing back. Holding yourself into wisdom and humility. There's nothing wrong with having the wrong stories in your head. It's wrong to stay ignorant. It's wrong to keep them when you know. Inhale, look up, walking back out. Picking up this right leg. And then roll down to the back. Make sure I'm good on time. Doing okay on time this week. So coming down. Guide that right knee over onto your left hip. Rounding that right shoulder, extending down. Breathing here. Inhaling back out. Switching your feet. And just being careful with your back here. It should be really nice and open. That also can mean it's a little vulnerable to too much movement. So we'll bring the right leg down, the left shin up. Maybe guide this left knee over. Onto the right hip as you squeeze that left shoulder to the ground. Breathing. What I notice is I have a really much easier time like firmly grounding my shoulders. I can really push my shoulder into the ground in this twist when I've been doing all these binds and shoulder opening all night. Inhaling back out. Bring the left leg down long. Let the legs relax out. Bring the arms along the sides. Shoulders behind the back. Breathing here. Gently bring your attention back to your breath. You can bring awareness and movement to the tips of the toes and fingers, letting that movement just wiggling fingers or toes, opening and closing the hands, maybe rolling ankles and wrists around. Just letting that movement really gradually grow closer and closer to the center of the body. Concentration is up in your seat. And once you're here, bringing the hands together at the heart. Breathing gratitude to yourself for spending time exploring what freedom means to you, what specific freedom associated things in your life have cost someone else their own freedom or are costing someone freedom now. What trade-offs, are kind of being made without you uh, consciously participating in it. Gratitude to yourself for examining these stories that we all know that surround, this upcoming holiday and the concept of freedom and all of this. You might not be able to fix the global supply chain or the environmental abuse or the historical abuse. We might only be chipping away at things now. But the fact is, you do have the power to free yourself from fairy tales that aren't about real freedom. So you can unbind yourself. You can look at how hard you have worked to protect certain stories or certain narratives, and you can let that go. And that's what Yoga for Justice is all about. I thank y'all for being here with me. Namaste. Oh, thank y'all for being with me.